So we just continue from where we left, session 3. Just a preview of session 2. We're just looking at the overview of ISO 9000, how to interpret the requirements, to look at the rationale and the evidence that one will be looking at. So let's move to session 3. I told you it's a short one. It talks about audit principles and auditor attributes. For you to conduct value-adding audits, you need to adhere to the laid down principles, which we'll go through, and some attributes that an auditor should have. So that is the main purpose. The principles of auditing are listed there. There are 7. And one of it is integrity. You have to adhere to the principle of integrity for you to conduct a value-adding audit. Integrity as in professionalism, ethical conduct, honesty, trust, state of not being compromised. So this is common to all auditors, whether it's financial audits. Integrity is very important. You have to be honest. Whatever you give out, the report you produce should be truthful and based on professionalism. Fair presentation is another principle that we need to adhere to, whereby is the obligation to report truthfully and accurately. And it states that good and bad that comes out in the audit should come out clearly. And if there is any significant obstacles, they can be resolved, or you can indicate them in your report. You can put any disclaimer of any, not even a disclaimer, before even disclaimer, if there is any obstacles that you have encountered during the audit or diverging opinions, you can indicate it. So in here, we want a fair report. If you are giving up a conclusion of a process that you have audited, it has to be fair. We mean that, yes, don't you only tell us about the bad side, tell us also about the good side. That's a fair presentation. You can't just go to a process and what you are telling us, they are just non-conformity, there is nothing good that you have seen. It's not fair. Just look at both sides. And as you audit, also look at the good things that are going on. We also want to know. We can replicate them somewhere else. If there is any significant obstacles, maybe you wanted to look at certain records, but the auditee objected or did not want you to look at them, you can always indicate in the report, yes, it is based on what I was able to see. However, maybe it could be a payroll you wanted to see, but with good reason, maybe you did not see that. So your report, you can indicate it clearly. It should be a fair presentation. If there is any disclaimer you want to make, you can do it in the report. Another principle is to do with due professional care, almost tied to number 1 of integrity. Whatever work you'll be doing from now henceforth is a professional job of an auditor. So you should have that due professional care, the application of diligence and correct judgment in auditing, reasoned and factual judgment. So as a professional, you have gone out to audit, you have looked at the process, you have perused through the evidence, then you should come up with a good judgment, professional judgment, reasoned and factual judgment, something that you can support later on. Independence, we mentioned about this, is a very important auditing principle. It's a basis for impartiality and objectivity in reaching audit conclusions. Auditors to be independent of the activity being audited and to be free from bias and conflict of interest. So you have to be independent of the process that you're auditing, and you cannot audit your own work. So somebody else will come and audit. And if there is a conflict of interest, if you feel there'll be a conflict of interest, you can always disqualify yourselves and maybe we give you another process to audit. If you feel auditing a certain process will bring out conflict of interest, you are free to say, and you'll be given any other process. Confidentiality, very important. The application of discretion in the use of and protection of confidential information gathered in the audit. Security of gathered information. So as you audit, you'll come across, may come across even confidential information. So as a good auditor and adhering to the principles of auditing, you should maintain that any confidential information.
Correct. So sasa niko sure unatusikia sasa.
Iko sawa.
Oh, Helen, karibu. Hello, Helen, uko sawa? Unasikia? We are going through the principles of auditing. Ama sio Helen? 5.0. We have a new participants ako na sisi? Tuko pamoja? The rest of the team, we are together. Can I continue?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So confidentiality. You may come across some very confidential information. A good auditor will just use the information for the purpose that it's meant for, but not using that information for other purposes. So it's very important. And when people know that you don't keep confidential information, they will not be open to you next time even you come to audit. But remember, why you are going to audit is just to improve that process. You are not going to seek confidential information, then you draw it out to the public. Evidence, another important principle. The rationale basis for reaching reliable and reproducible audit conclusion in a systematic manner process. However, evidence is based on samples of the information available since an audit is conducted during a finite period of time and with finite resources. So your report or your conclusion must be based on sound evidence. Don't give us any conclusion without supporting evidence. Otherwise, it does not qualify to be a good conclusion. This evidence may be based on sample of information because yes, you don't have time to look at all the documents there. Like the case study we were looking at, we talked about 6 out of 200. Maybe there are many files there. There are more than 1,000. But for the due to time and the resources, you are able just to look at 200. And from 200, you sampled, you found that 6 were not working. So that is allowed. It should happen because you don't have time for everything. But for the sample that you have picked up, should come out in the report. Yeah, it was 6 or it was 7 or out of whatever. But you have to base on evidence. If you don't have evidence, just like a court case, if you don't have evidence of the person you're accusing, it does not qualify to continue. So evidence, very important. Then the last one, which is a new one in the standard, it's risk-based approach. An audit approach that considers risk and opportunities in the auditing process, program, and the processes being audited. So you have to take the issues of risk into consideration. Even as you program, as you decide when you are going out to audit, you need to look at the risk that could be there. Maybe the person may not be available when you want the person. Maybe the time is not favorable for both of you. So you try to sort out those issues. Then as you do the audit, as it was in the case study, try to look at what are the missing gaps in the risks that have been identified. Are they conclusive? Are they comprehensive? So 7 principles of auditing: integrity, fair presentation, due professional care, independence, confidentiality, evidence, and risk-based approach. Now, as a person, your character, how do you carry out yourself as an auditor? There are those attributes that you should have. and they are the ones listed there as positive, not the negative ones. A good auditor is an open-minded person. So you are open-minded. As you gather information, you'll ask questions and you receive answers. But be open-minded. There are many ways to kill a cat. So don't just think that the way you know it is the way it should be. So don't have fixed opinion. That is a negative part of it. There are people who have fixed opinion. If it's not done this way, if the policy statement is not in the website, that's an unconformity. But there are many ways of communicating the policy statement. There are many ways of doing things. So just first understand, then ask yourself, is it effective? Is it delivering? Is it giving the desired result? Then you should not worry. Observant. Being observant is very important as you audit. There are some of the things which you'll just observe by your eyes, and they will prompt you maybe to ask certain questions, or they will even lead to an unconformity or conformity. So keep on observing the office, how it is well arranged. Running out of time. Let's see. So being observant, you go out there as you audit the process, you observe the infrastructure that is there, how the files have been arranged. There's so many things you can pick by observing. Persistent or being tenacious, a very important attribute, whereby you are aiming at finishing what you started. Tenacious, you are not giving up, you are persistent. So once we have, after this training, we'll come up with an audit plan where you'll be assigned maybe to audit a certain process. The last thing we'd want to hear from you is that, yes, you sent me to audit underwriting process, I went there, but I was not able to audit. Those people are so difficult, I was not able to ask the questions, so I've come back. The audit was not done. That is the least we'd want to hear. You have to be passive. You have to use your own ways of carrying out your duties to ensure that at the very end, you are giving us the results. You are giving us the report. Don't tell us the auditees were so difficult, so I was not able to audit. We don't. So it's persistent. Even in life, you are where you are because you have persisted in many things. In school, you persisted. Otherwise, there were so many challenges and you could have given up. But due to that persistence and being tenacious, that's why you are where you are. A good auditor will have the attributes of being flexible, almost like open-minded, and versatile. You are flexible. You are not fixed, or you are not fixed in one way of doing things. You are flexible. You are also decisive. You are able to make decisions. There are some of us, we take a lot of time to make a decision. You need to decide. Even when you are driving, you need to be decisive. Which way will I use today? Will I use the one I came in the morning? But if you are just sitting there and you are not able to decide, then you don't have a good personal attribute. You need to decide. Is it an unconformity? Is it a conformity? Can we now move to the next question? Integrity, just touched as the same as the principles of auditing. You have to be somebody who is trustworthy, somebody who is honest, somebody who cannot be easily compromised. Diplomatic in the way you deal with the people. It's a professional job you are doing, so you have to be diplomatic, follow the protocols that are there when you are going to somebody, and do it in a diplomatic way. You must have good listening skills. Remember, you have gone to gather information, but most of us, you have gone to audit, but you want to do the talking all the time. How do you gather the information? You should learn to have good listening skills. On the negative, we talked about having fixed opinion. That is very bad. Argumentative. You go out to audit, then you are arguing with the auditee, and there is a lot of noise we can hear from the office. We ask what is happening. No, don't you know there is auditing going on? I mean, it shows you are not diplomatic. It shows that you're not able to carry out yourself well. So if there is any, remember what we have mentioned about fair presentation. If there is any issue of concern, a major one that could lead to argumentative, you can indicate in the report. However, we do not agree in ABCD. But in most cases, you never find those things. You go there, people are willing to give you information, and you move on. Don't be a know-it-all. There are some of us who are know-it-all. So before even they speak, you tell them, stop, I know how it is done. Let them tell you. You can also learn a few things. Me as an auditor, I've learned a lot by auditing. You go out there and you learn how things are done. So don't be know-it-all. Don't be flexible. Don't be flexible. You have mentioned about that. Be decisive, not indecisive. And don't be one who can be compromised. That hiyo wachana nayo. Hiyo tumewachana na hii, wewe sema hii. No, try as much as possible to state issues as they are, as you have found them. So auditor personal attributes, open-minded, observant. There are common sense things, but very important. Versatile, decisive, integrity, diplomatic, good listener, and so forth. So if you don't have any of those attributes, try to have them, or where you need to improve on them. Yeah, I told you it's a short one. So principles, the general principles of auditing there, and you as an auditor, your character, how you need to carry out yourself. It's there. We want to go to session 4, but if there are any issues. So we just want to familiarize ourselves with the key terminologies and terms that you may come across as you audit. And they are very important because you use them as you do your reporting and as you carry out your audit. The main one is audit objectives. As you go out to audit, it has to be defined. What are you going to look for? What is sought or aimed at? Times it's defined by the management or the quality management system coordinator. When we give you the assignment, is my audio on? I can see something.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So
we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Audit objective has to be defined. What are you going to look at? And the examples have been provided there. So maybe it will be determining extent of conformity and effectiveness of company quality management system. In most cases, as we all do the internal audit, that will be the audit objectives. You are going out to determine the extent of conformity and effectiveness of company to ISO 9001 quality management system. However, if it was a second party, where you as an auditor, you are being sent to one of our suppliers, the objective may change. It will be like evaluate capability of supplier. So depending on what kind of audit you are doing, the objective may change. But it's very important, it's defined so that you confine yourselves to the objective of the audit. Another term, important one, is the audit scope. It needs to be defined. Extent and boundaries, such as physical locations. Are you going to audit Center Point or Williamson? So it could be all the company processes, or maybe just one process, claim process, and writing process. So you need to be very keen when you are being told that you're going to audit, but what will be your audit scope? Are you covering all the processes, or what processes are you covering? And all these have to be well stated in the audit plan before you go out. The audit objectives, audit scope, and the audit criteria. We have come across this. Audit criteria is what to be audited against. So it could be sets of policies, procedures or requirements, depending on what kind of audit you're doing. It could be ISO 9001, and for us, yeah, that will be our main audit criteria. That standards with its requirement. We are doing an environmental management systems audit, it will be ISO 14000. If we are auditing a laboratory, it will be 17025. If we are auditing a food industry, it will be ISO 22000. So depending on what kind of quality management systems you audit. Or it could be that standard, including maybe company requirements, the policies that have already been set, the procedures, government regulations, industry code of practice. Or if we are doing an audit for a supplier, it will be maybe supplier contractual agreements or service level agreements that you will act as your audit criteria. But it will have to be defined. For each audit, in the audit plan, will be shown what the audit criteria we are going to use. Is it clear? Audit criteria, audit objectives? The team? We move on, eh?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Sami,
Yes, please, Dennis.
where there are several, so possible to audit based on several audit criteria, like say ISO 9001, the Insurance Act.
Yes.
And so it's actually possible to follow several audit criteria.
Yes, there could be one or a combination of the criteria. Huh? It could be ISO 9000 with, like the one we'll be doing. Yeah, there will be ISO 9001 and also company requirements. That one we can't miss out, and government regulations. Huh? Because you have to be a legal organization that are complying with the relevant legal regulations. But there are times when you can just audit on government regulations alone. You can decide to do that, and it's allowed. But for our internal audit, main audit criteria will be ISO 9000, followed by company requirements and government regulations. All of them will be audited at once. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Any other before we move on? So audit program, and a sample has been drawn there. So we'll need to we remember the definition of audit. It's systematic and documented process. So you have an audit program. Normally, you have a schedule, an annual schedule of when the audit will be done and which process will be audited. Just like you have seen there, there is claims. Maybe we are talking of we'll do an audit in January, February, then March and April. ICT, we just do it January. HRM, human resource, January. Now, the program should consider the status and the importance of the processes and areas to be audited, changes, results of previous audit. So there are some of the things you need to consider as you do the audit. For this example given here, you can see that claims is being audited more often than the others. Maybe because that is a more critical, a core process in our kind of business. So we want to check the performance and evaluation more often than the others. Maybe ICT, we are not so much concerned because it's not our core business. It's not even our core process. HRM, and that is one of the reasons why we distinguished between core and support process when we were doing documentation. So we have to give more importance to core processes than ICT. However, if previous audits shows that like ICT has been having so many issues, yeah, we can still audit more often than the core process. But basically, when everything is happening as it's supposed to be, core processes need to be audited more often than the support. Risk related with uncertainty of not complying with the schedule to be determined and controlled, e.g. insufficient resources time. We explained that. that it should be a risk approach. We should have the risk approach even in auditing, even for the program. Because yes, we can do a program like this, but there is risk that we will not even be able to do the audit as we have planned. Maybe we don't have enough resources, so many people are on leave, that is Corona is there around the corner. So you need to consider all those things before you finalize on your programs. But we will need a program like that. Once you have a program, so if it comes to, let's say, January, you now do a specific audit plan. That was the annual, but now you'll do a specific audit plan showing who will audit, when, what time, that will be done. It's a description of the activities and arrangements for an audit, dates and time for the audit. So audit date, we have it there. Audit objective, it will be defined, and this will be defined by the project manager, by the quality management system coordinator, before this audit plan is circulated. Audit scope, but this has to be consistent with the program. Audit criteria, it will be stated there. Then the area, like for this is claims, time. So the auditor has been assigned 9:30 to 10:30, one hour. Auditor, John, auditee somewhere. Maybe that time it will be Ri or 9, I don't know. So, and all that. But you need to ensure independence of auditors. Should not audit their own work. So if John is the auditor of claims, we don't expect John to be the claims manager or working in claims. So that is the only thing you need to ensure there. But that is now the specific plan that will be used. Now there are various persons that are involved during an audit. The first and foremost is the auditor. And who is an auditor? Is a person with competence to conduct an audit. And competence comes through training, skills and experience. So if you have that, and we have defined the competence in one of the slides, you qualify to be an auditor. Auditee. Auditee is a person or the organization being audited. So if you have to go and audit underwriting, and you are auditing underwriting manager, that kind of scenario, the underwriting manager will be the auditee. When the external auditors will come to audit us for certification purposes, will be the auditee, and they will be the auditor. Audit grant, person or organization requesting an audit. Yeah, even during the external audit, will be the audit grant for those external auditors to come and audit us. Auditor usually is a audit team leader. So if we are maybe 3 of you, one will be chosen to be the team leader. You can either call that person a team leader or a lead auditor, leading the team. Technical experts would be a person who provides specific knowledge or expertise to the audit team if required. Note the last words there, if required. At times, you may require a technical expert to accompany the team. If the area is very technical, it's very complicated, you can get somebody on board to come and help you understand the process and see whether things are done according to the expectation of that expertise. But normally, you do not expect this for like our internal audit. You know your process, you have the general knowledge about underwriting, about claims, about HR. You don't want to have an expert or somebody from outside to come and help you to audit. But in some certain cases, I remember one time we were going to audit one of the major hospitals in Kenya, and none of us have that background of the medical background. So in our team, we looked for a doctor. The doctor is not an auditor, even he has not gone through this training. But at least he accompanied us as they were telling us how they do their work, their procedures and all that. he could ascertain or say, no, here it's not done as per the practice. That time we required one. But in most cases, you not require. But if there is such kind of a person, a technical expert. Other persons that can be involved in an audit, observers or guides. Observers may be an auditor under training or client representative who witness how the audit is conducted. A guide provides direction to the audit team. Observers, guide do not participate in the actual audit. So an observer could be even an auditor under training. Like for us, we have now the participants who we are training. I think we are 9, I don't know. So as a audit, as a matter of preparing others for to do this kind of a training or to become auditors in future, you can welcome somebody who has never even been trained to come and be with a team, but just as an observer. And he or she should not participate. She should not ask questions or start writing the report, but just as a way of mentoring future auditors, you can have observers. In other cases, you can have a client representative who witness how audit is conducted. For example, when we are doing external audits and we decide even we want to include Mombasa or another branch out there, when the external auditor goes to the site, we can send one of our employees here to go and accompany them, just to witness and to see, yeah, they have audited, what kind of questions they're asking, but they cannot answer any questions or participate. Or they can even go there as a guide to show them, yeah, the office is here, after this office you need to go there. But they are not participating. The ones who are participating are the auditors who are competent and they have been trained. So those are some of the persons who could be involved. And there is the audit team. So it's one or more auditors conducting an audit. So in most cases, especially when you have a good pool of auditors, you send at least 2 or 3, not one person. But even one person can be sent, that can be audit team. Now, when it comes to selecting the team, this is the work of the quality management coordinator. There's various issues to consider. What are the competencies needed to achieve objectives? So do these team members have the competence that is required? Or do you need to maybe include somebody who has more competent, who have more knowledge about that process? So you wonder, or do you even require an external or a technical expert to accompany the team? So that is something to look at. Adequacy of resources. So you have selected 2 auditors to audit 5 processes. Will they be able to complete in a day? So you look at the resources. How many do you require? Independence of auditors, we talked about that. Are they independent of the areas that they are going to audit? Language, cultural, social issues, not really a major issue when you are auditing your own organization, but in case you'll be sent to audit maybe an organization or one of the branch in, maybe you'll have a branch in India in the future. So you want to see, if you send Mutaidia there, does he understand Gujarat? Will he have the knowledge to be able to communicate with those people? So
he will understand.
He knows. Okay, so you determine. Maybe Mutaidia understands more of Gujarat than Isaac or Wanjira. So you'll see who is best placed to go there. Then the other thing is responsibility of the team members. So as we go out, you'll be chosen as a team. You need within your team, or that can even be determined earlier by the quality management coordinator, you need to come up with who is a team leader, who will be the auditor. And again, you need to share responsibility. What are you going to do? There are some of us, we are given like 3 team members. We go to audit. Then you find one of them is just escorting the team. The person is not is not participating in any way, not asking any question, and then the audit ends and he says he was part of the team member. Doing what? So it's very important we share responsibility, and there are many responsibilities to do with the audit, and we'll come across most of them as we go on. But some of them are: who is going to lead the team? Who is going to make an introduction? Because as you go out to audit, if you are 3 of you, you don't just start question 1, 2, 3. You want to do an introduction: who you are, why you are there, what your audit criteria. So it's important to know who will do it. But normally, the team leader or the lead auditor is the one who is supposed to do that. Then there is a member who should be told, yes, maybe you will ask question 1 to 10. Then after 10, another team member will ask. You share responsibility. Then you ask yourself, who will do the final report? And it's very important. You don't choose the person to do the report at the end of the audit. Even before you start, let the person know, you know, me I'll ask questions, me I'll do introduction, but you'll be the one to do the report. So that person will be more keen and take a lot of notes as you audit, and many other responsibilities that will be there. Grant has a right to replace auditor. Yeah, if you read that standard I was telling you about, just that provision, because in some cases, you may want somebody, the grant or the auditee may require, please replace an auditor. It happens because when the audit is to be done, the audit plan is communicated in advance. Even the external auditor, when they'll be coming here, they'll not just knock at the door. They'll first send a program, their audit plan, and they will indicate the objectives, the audit criteria, and the auditor who is going to come to audit us. By name, we'll know them even before they come. And we have a right to replace them. We can ask the certification body, please change for us. We don't want Benson who to come. Can you give us somebody else? And maybe what could be the reasons of making such a request, if I'm to ask? Whereby they sent a program to us, they have shown who is going to audit, but we decide to communicate back and tell them, no, don't bring Isaac Muturi here. Just look for any other auditor. What could prompt those kind of things? If anybody can try to share and think about it.
The issue about competence.
Yes, elaborate more.
Maybe you have engaged the auditor before and you feel like they don't understand your business well, so they don't know what they are doing.
True, very true. So you have prior experience, prior history, information about this auditor. Say, no, just look for some, and they have many auditors, and there is no problem. They will not argue with you. They may ask for even the why, or they just decide to just change because you have your own good reason. Yeah, that could be one of a good reason. Any other?
I think also personal attributes, like maybe there's a question mark on the integrity of the said auditor.
True. Yeah, it could be if you have prior knowledge. But don't just judge somebody from the look of the name. You just look at the name and you judge that this person will not have integrity. If you have prior information, prior knowledge, yeah, you can always ask for a replacement. Yeah, that is good. And also, it could be this person was working in this company maybe some years ago. Then he left, and in a bad way, then he went looking for a job. He landed at the certification body.
Very familiar.
Yes?
That sounds very familiar.
Oh, it sounds very familiar. So, during the certification audit, that is a person who is being sent to audit IAA. So you might feel here there might be some compromise, or he may not be able to do a good job. because already you have dealt with him and things did not work out. So why can't you look at for somebody who is independent and who is free from any kind of conflict? So it happens. But what about internally? Yeah, even internally you can still ask. An audit plan can be sent, circulated by Dennis. Then Nicholas is to audit Isaac, but maybe Isaac decides to say, no, please replace Nicholas with somebody else. What could be the reason? Internally. Why would somebody ask, hey, please, and it's allowed. We want to add value, so it doesn't matter who audits. And if you feel you're not comfortable with this person, we can always give you another person. Normally it doesn't happen, but it can happen. What are some of the things?
Isaac doesn't like the way Nicholas looks.
The appearance. Okay, if you have enough evidence to support it.
And he has evidence to support that.
Okay, yeah, if you have evidence. Yes. What else could prompt you? Because basically here we want value adding. So if you feel there is even a conflict of interest, you feel there is a conflict of interest here. Maybe there are people, but this, when the quality management coordinator is doing the audit plan, you should try to think ahead and see where things may not be, where maybe value may not be added as much. If there are two people, they have been fighting maybe for a position you know of, and you want this person to go and audit the other person, there's some things which can arise which are not very good because there are some conflicts. But normally it does not happen. Or in an organization, you can find that maybe a husband, maybe the husband and the wife, they're working in the same organization. So if you send the husband to audit the wife, it's okay, it can be done, but at times it doesn't look so nice, or they can go and start discussing other issues and not about the audit. It happens, but it's not major. But those are some minor issues. Take somebody who is very free. You'll be able to do the audit without any conflict or any other social issues. So it can happen internally, it can happen externally. If you have good reasons, no problem. But internally, I don't expect. Even very few places I've seen where a plan has been changed. Okay. Audit evidence, we mentioned about this, and it's very important. You have to base your audit, your findings or your conclusion. You have to support them with the audit evidence, which could be records that you saw, statements of fact or other information, which they have to be relevant to the audit criteria, and they are verifiable. So you can still go back and you find, yeah, this is what I found. These are the records. These are the list of participants. They were 9 because they are there. People usually confuse between effectiveness and efficiency. So as you do the reporting, be careful when you are using the word effectiveness or efficiency. Effectiveness is about extent to which planned activities are realized and planned results are achieved. So if there are planned results, you are to achieve maybe this kind of a target and it was achieved, so the process is effective, it's achieving. But efficiency is about relationship between the results which are achieved and the resources. Yes, you achieved the target, but at what cost? So was it efficient? The process can be effective but not efficient. So be careful as you deal with those two issues. Okay, good. Those are just the key terms that we are looking at. So we want to start on the major. Now the major part is the stages. These are just the key terms, and there are many others, but just wanted to familiarize ourselves so that as we look at the stages, we are conversant with the kind of terminologies we are using. But now that is where now the audit starts. Audit stages. So there are usually three main stages of audit. Stage one is about planning. Planning is all over. You talked about in every process you have to plan first. Whatever you do, before you do it, plan. So we look at the planning stages of an audit. Then there is stage two of conducting. So doing what you have planned. Mostly is done on site. You go to where the process is, you ask your questions, that is stage two. Stage three involves reporting. Yes, you have gone out, you have gathered evidence, now report. Sometimes we call it post-audit activities. So there is pre-audit. Pre-audit is planning, and that is the most important. And that's where you should spend most of your time. You hear of the stories they talk about, if you want to cut a tree, a big tree with an axe, you should spend most of the time sharpening it and planning how you're going to do it. So planning is very important. Pre-audit, on-site, you go there to audit. Then post-audit, when you go out to audit, we expect a report. We expect to know what was the outcome. Those three main stages. So they have been provided there, audit stages, audit planning, what is involved in audit planning. You can see 1 to 4. The main issues here is to do with the audit program. We have mentioned that annual program is to be done. And after this audit, then it has to come up with it, audit program. Generating audit plan. So once we have planned, and maybe in the audit program, it will state that we are going to do the audit June. So in June, we'll do the actual audit plan, which will show who will audit what process, what time, just like the example you have shown there. In the audit planning, you do document review and preparation of checklist. So before we go out to audit, you will be required, once the audit plan has come out, you need to be conversant with the area that you're going to audit. Remember we talked about have a general knowledge of the area you are auditing. And preparation of checklists. We learn what a checklist is and how to prepare it. During planning, it's good to inform the auditee in advance. These are not ad hoc audits. You are informing, we are coming, so that they will be ready. You'll find them there. During the audit performance, the on-site, the activities that are done are mainly conducting opening meeting, which is just like an introduction. So when you go to the site or to the office or wherever you are auditing, you first conduct an opening meeting. You correcting and verifying information to get audit evidence. So you'll be interviewing and doing all sorts of things to get audit evidence. Evaluating audit evidence and generate findings to come up with an audit conclusion. So you compare audit evidence with the audit criteria, come up with audit conclusion. Then you finish up with a closing meeting. You started with an opening meeting, do a closing meeting also. Stage 3, audit reporting and follow-up. In summary, is where you're generating audit reports, corrective actions. So if there are issues of non-conformity, they'll need corrective actions. There is a form where you'll fill those, the description of what you found, because the major and minor non-conformity, which we'll define later on, have to be addressed in a formal way. So there is that particular form that you're going to use to do corrective actions. Once they have been done, there is a follow-up of crossing of non-conformity. So the auditee or the process owner will ensure that the issues have been addressed. They will be filled in that form. They will be sent to you. Then you need to do a follow-up, and we look at how you do a follow-up. That is when you cross out that and conformity. So in summary, that's what is required. I mentioned that this approach should also come up in the internal audit program. And I've mentioned some of these things, what you need to look at. So I'll be a bit fast here, I will not read everything. The risk and opportunity related to internal audit program need to be understood and actions taken to address them. The examples of ineffective or lack of adequate resources, poor selection of audit team, ineffective communication, lack of confidentiality, lack of appropriate sampling, or lack of evidence to be sampled. So there are all those kind of risks. How you address them? One of it could be training, establishing SOP for auditing, which you already have, and it will be circulated to you. Prior communication with the auditee, etc., can help to reduce some of these risks that you may encounter. Opportunities that could be arise. Remember, we were looking at the risk and the opportunities. You can improve effectiveness and efficiency of audit program in future from the lesson that you can learn from the audit that you're doing. Also, you have an opportunity to do multiple audits. Multiple audits is where, like, you're doing an audit of ISO 9000 together with ISO 14000. You can use the same resources, but I don't expect us to do that at this stage. And so forth. Minimize time and need of traveling to sites, incorporating lesson learned. So those are the risks that are there and the opportunity in a program. But let's look at now stage one, planning for audit in more detail. What you require to do. So mainly the planning is done by the QMS coordinator, who is a project manager, in conjunction with the auditors. So they are planning how audit will be done in this organization. Then an audit plan should be done for each specific audit when it is due, and it should be communicated to the auditors and auditees in advance. You don't just show up for the audit. The auditee need to know that you are coming so that they can wait for you and they are prepared. QMR, although here it's QMC, the QMC coordinator, will provide directions on the checklist that is to be used by the auditors. There are standard checklists, there are others where you're required to generate. We look at them ahead. Auditors are required to take time to familiarize themselves with the related documents of the function they'll be auditing. I mentioned about that. Auditors to familiarize themselves with the checklist. Yeah, if it's a standard checklist, it's important that you familiarize yourself, such that if there is a question that you are to ask, you first understand what is the intention of that question. What do you expect to gather from asking that kind of a question? So you need to familiarize with the checklist. Auditors should ensure that they have the necessary resources. If you are using pens or a notebook, where to write the notes. We don't expect a situation where you as an auditor, you go to audit, you don't have even a pen, you don't have a notebook, you start asking the auditee, can you help me with your pen? I return it after the audit. Can you help me with this a full scarf where I can write? They'll see you are not prepared and they will not even take it serious. So you need to prepare well. You need to have all the tools that you require before you go out to audit. In the document review, which we mentioned as part of planning, it's very important. It will assist the auditor to familiarize with the function to be audited in preparation for the on-site activity. So if you request for the IT SOP and you go through it, it will give you information on how things are done. You'll be able to familiarize. And all these documents will be shared. They'll be there where you can look at and get to know about each and every process. And that's one of the reasons why we are documenting them. The other advantage is to assess if the system as documented conforms to the audit criteria, to pick any gaps. Yeah, as you go through those documents, you can even start the audit there. You can write your own notes. Maybe there's a section which was not well covered, or the document does not have a numbering system. If you find any deficiency in the document, you can note it somewhere, then you'll include it in your internal audit report. Or you can let the auditee know and they rectify. So it will act two ways. First, you are trying to familiarize with the document, with the place where you are going to audit, and at the same time, you'll also be auditing that document. You can audit it and bring out issues whereby if they address them, the document will be better than they give you, no problem. Gaps that are noted should be included in the audit report as you do document review. I mentioned about checklists. What are they? They are just structured list of points or questions. They are tools to assist the auditor to easily remember what to ask and in a systematic manner. So a checklist is just a document to guide you on what you want to check. There are some of the experienced auditors who don't even use the checklist, especially the external auditor. But at times I find it is very important to have a checklist. It will help you to do things in a systematic way. You will be able to see what you have not asked, what you are yet to ask. It will control even, it will help you to manage your time as you look at how many questions have I covered, how many questions are remaining. For me, I find it as a very necessary tool, and I usually use it. It could be in form of questions, so you can write, show me your targets, or others will just write targets. Then they know what they'll ask question to do with the targets. They'll ask question to do with the competence, or they could be resource points or even questions. There exist various types of checklists. There could be the standard checklist or generic checklists. A standard checklist is where the questions have been determined for you. Your work has been made easy. Where the questions are there, you are given, these are the questions that you are going to ask. Or it could be just a blank form where the auditor generates their own question, auditor own generated checklist. Times you are told, you just go and you know, you have their documents, you know what ISO 9000 talks about, come up with your own questions, audit, and let us know your conclusions. Or standard checklists, and this is the one we advocate for, standard checklists with the provision of auditor to add own questions in order to customize it. So we advocate for the last one, for the last, the first one is standard own auditor own generated, but the third one combines both. And we have found it very useful. Here you have standard questions done for you so that you don't miss some of the very important issues you need to ask. But this checklist as a provision, you as an auditor, in order to customize it or to add your own questions, you have a provision to do that. At times when you leave the auditor to do their own checklist, you might find they miss out on very important issues, like the objective. They're not even asking about objective or target. They're not asking about policy statements, whether they are there, they understood. So there is that standard checklist, but with a provision of adding your own questions. And we'll see examples of those kind of checklists. Now, there is an exercise here. I don't know how we are going to do it, but we want to practice and come up with a checklist. I've stated it could be a form of list of points or just questions on what you are going to use to audit a procurement process. Remember, procurement are the ones who have the role of purchasing materials or whatever we are using. So if we ask you to go there, we want you as an auditor to generate the questions or what you are going to ask when you are there. So I'll give you a few minutes, like 10, in your own area, just note down like 2 or 3 issues that, or maybe even 5, that you'd want you'll ask. And the objective here is to determine whether procurement process complies with ISO 9001 requirements. So what are you going to ask? Please note 1 or 3 or 5 questions or points that you are going to ask as an auditor. Just imagine like the way you have just been sent, go and audit procurement. So then we shall share. Whatever you have noted down, will give you a chance to share and tell us what you have come up with. So a tool that you're going to use to help you see whether the procurement process in IAA conforms to ISO 9001 requirements. 10 minutes are enough.
Okay. I've come up with 6.
Yes.
And in the procurement process,
Yes.
as the auditor, would be interested in knowing whether quotations were solicited from different suppliers.
Okay.
And I would seek to know how many they were, how many came through. I mean the quotations. And the criteria for choosing the supplier who is to be awarded the supply.
Yes.
I would want to know whether a purchase order was raised.
Yes.
And I would also want to know whether the supply was made accompanied by a delivery note and a copy of the purchase order.
Okay.
I would seek to know whether the goods were received in good order, whether any were returned for defects, or some other things like that.
Yes.
And I would also want to know whether the invoice is in agreement with the delivery note and the purchase order.
Okay.
I would also want to know whether the supplier chosen was in the list
Yes.
of the approved suppliers. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. That is according to Mr. Mungai. Let's hear from any other participants. And don't tell us same as Mungai's. Come up with your own.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. Maybe some additions I can think about.
Yes.
Is in matters of approval of procurements.
Okay.
I would want to know whether the persons who did the procurement are authorized to procure on behalf of the company.
Okay.
And so yes, whether the procurement was properly authorized.
Yes.
And in terms of selecting a supplier, I would want to know whether the company asked for and checked the references for this particular supplier. And then also I'll be able to review quality to see whether this supplier can actually supply what they promised to supply. And then also matters of price comparison, delivery capability, and keeping to the schedule, agreed schedule.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also I would have additions in terms of quality control. I would want to know that the procurement procedure of the company checks periodically if the current suppliers have been consistently meeting quality and whether they achieve delivery deadlines and whether they are still offering competitive prices, because it could be that a supplier was offering competitive prices when you started with them 3 years ago, but they are no longer offering competitive prices. So I would want to know that there's something in place to check that as well periodically.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good. Any other?
And then also I would want to check to see that the person who received the goods is authorized to receive goods.
Yes.
And that this person followed the company's procedure in receiving the said goods.
Okay.
Not just accepting a delivery and signing off a document without checking whatever needs to be checked before accepting the delivery.
Yes. Okay. That's good. Let's have another participants. Yeah, Isaac.
Maybe just to add on what has been said.
Yes.
I would assume because it's a procurement process, already the company has set up guidelines or maybe some rules.
True.
Or maybe it has a list of how the procurement process will be done. I would be interested to see if when you are doing the procurement, if the stipulated rules or guidelines were followed.
True.
And I would also, because I am assuming we have already procured the goods and we have them maybe where we wanted to, if it was for HR or for underwriting, I would also want to see what if we did it through like a tender or something like that, how we did the communication or how we invited the tenders.
Yes.
And also I would also like to compare for those guys who didn't make it to win the tender, to be awarded the procurement of whatever you are buying. I see if they could have, maybe we could have left anybody else who could have provided better qualities and stuff like that compared to the one who was chosen.
Good. Okay, thank you, Mr. Isaac. Somebody else? Additions? Any additions?
Hello, Samuel.
Yes, please. Yeah, Nicholas.
Yes, my addition for that, when we are checking the auditing the procurement,
yes,
before we procure anything,
yes,
was the light department informed?
Okay.
To give up the quality and the quantity of the services that are supposed to be given to the company.
Okay.
Yes.
So they need to be involved. Or are they involved? Yeah. Okay. Any other additions?
Okay, I would also want to see
Yes,
or to
Angela.
know
Yeah.
how often they refer to the procurement SOP, or do they
Yes.
just think haphazardly? And I would also want to see evidence that purchases made were made after approval by the relevant authorities and not just haphazardly.
Yes. Good. Sawa, any other?
Maybe to add on, finally, I would say, or look at whether the contracts are binding over a period of time.
Yes.
Whether they are signed or, yeah, at the end of it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mteja. Anyone who has not shared their points or questions? Can we give our feedback here? If there is no other, that's well done. Very well done. Yes, you look at quotations, criteria, LPO, delivery notes. You have heard of list of approved suppliers, competence of those who are doing the job, SOPs, stipulated rules, which are very good. But I would wish that don't base your questions on just the good practices that you know of about procurement. You know, there are some of us auditors, you're told to procurement, so you just decide in a good procurement what should be there. Yeah, they should have this. They have to have the LPO with them. They have to have this. Because you might be assuming, may be acting on assumption. The first thing that you need to look at, go back to the ISO standard. What does it say about procurement? I'm happy you have touched on some of those things. Like you remember that slide, if I can go back. There is a slide where we were discussing control of outsourced processes. 8.4, that is slide number what? Operation, under operations, is slide now 8.4. Where they said, it was stated, if you want to have useful audit evidence, approved external provider, which was mentioned by most of you, which is very good. Selection and qualification criteria. It has been mentioned by most of you, and evaluation records. However, I've not had any of you mention, like you said that the system starts at the very high, at the top. I've not had any of you ask about whether the procurement personnel understands about the quality policy. Just concentrated on the procurement itself there. I've not heard of you ask about what is the targets. And those are the first questions. What are the targets? Where have they, what do they want to achieve at the end of the year? Or what are your targets or objectives, which are very necessary. The policy, understanding of the policy and the targets, those one is very important that they are there. If you are given a standard checklist, it will include those things first. And that's why I told you we advocate for standard plus now customized, so that you don't miss out on those important issues, but you have touched on them. The other thing that you need to do, I know in that exercise, maybe it was not possible, but before even you come up with these questions, you need to look at their criteria, the SOP, somebody said, because let's say you ask how many quotations do you obtain or do you ask for before you evaluate who. So you need to look at what does the ISO 9001 state in regards to procurement, so that you come up with, you don't miss out, in addition to other questions that you may want to ask, so that you don't miss out on what it says. Then you need to look at the SOP, which will help you even to know whether there is conformity or non-conformity. Like before we broke out, I was asking if you ask a question of how many quotations do you receive before you decide who to give the order. So if the person tells you, let's say 4, so you as an auditor, is it a conformity, is it non-conformity? If they tell you 3, so you need first to, it's a good question you need to ask, but it's very important that you know what is stated, what is the policy of the company. Yes, must all procurement go through tendering? So the document will tell you. So in here, I'm trying to point out why you need to first look at the documents themselves before you generate your checklist. Then in addition to that, you can add the good practices that you know of and see whether they are practicing or not. Policy statement, need to ask. Objectives, you need to ask. I've not had any of you ask like the documented information, are they controlled? Maybe the forms that you're using there, are they numbered? No, at the end of it, we want you to write a conclusion down there at the report. This process complies with the ISO 9001, or it does not in these areas. So it's holistic. You need to look at all things. Don't just zero in to procurement alone. But those were very good questions, very relevant to a procurement process. But what I'm just asking you is to show you the need to first go back to the ISO standards. Look at the clauses that talks about that kind of a process. Read it through, like we went through the overview. Come up with those questions. Get to the SOP. Maybe for the SOP, they can just decide that for us, we'll not be doing LPO, we'll be doing something else. No problem. Now, if it is working for them and that is what they have written, that's you'll ask and you'll expect that answer. So that you do a very good checklist that is relevant to your section. Tomorrow, we'll be going through examples of a checklist which have already been done. As we do that, remember about what we have done today and see what else you could have missed out. But otherwise, that was good. Yeah, you based it on your general knowledge of a procurement process, which is good. But next time, first go for the standard, go for the SOP, and don't just ask questions that are just related with procurement. Look at even the overall picture. Look at the policy. Do they understand why? What we are committed towards quality? Do they have the objectives? Are they monitoring the objectives? How often? Where is the trend? How can we see it? Can they show us those kind of things? But otherwise, it was good. You mentioned about criteria and so forth and so forth. So this is just training. You'll continue perfecting that. At the end of the training, you'll come up with a better checklist than you have come up with. You'll find you're looking at everything in a holistic manner. Any feedback, any questions regarding that assignment? Say something.
None.
I'm okay.
Okay. Good. But that was a good attempt. The next time you'll do a better. And that's why we are training, we are in this training. That was a good exercise, well done. Now, on-site activities. So we are imagining here that you have prepared yourself, you have come up with a checklist, and checklist which is inclusive of all the requirements of ISO 9000, the SOP of that area. The next thing you need to do is now to go to the site. On-site activities will include conducting opening meeting, which is just like an introduction. Don't just start with asking questions. Now, conducting the audit, gathering information. There are many ways to do that. Then conducting closing meeting or sharing the summary of your findings. Don't just ask questions and disappear. The auditee feels comfortable. So when you just share a summary, you know that time you have not written a report, but let the person know what to expect. Don't just close the door and disappear. Information gathering, there are many methods to do that. The most common method is interviewing. Just the way the Jeff does it in the TV. You ask questions and you'll be told. The other one, and we mentioned about it, observation of activities. Remember, it's one of the attributes of an auditor, observant. There are things you can observe, and even without being told, you can tell how the process is or how things are being managed. But even after observing, it's important to clarify. Don't just observe and make a conclusion, and you have not clarified. Maybe it's not the way you are seeing it. Another method of gathering information is through document review. So take time. You read the documents. If you are shown some records, take time to look at them, peruse them. Data analysis, yeah, you can analyze, you can have a calculator there. Maybe you can even also calculate and see are the figures they are giving you the correct ones. But mostly is interview and observation. But all that is okay. On-site activities. Now, how do you conduct an opening meeting? It may look something very easy, but most of us, we don't do it the way it's required to be done. The audit team leader or designated person is to do the opening meeting. First, be prepared on what you want to talk about. Before you do the opening meeting, before you do the introduction, you need to be prepared. Maybe you take you write some notes on what you're going to talk about so that you don't forget any of the key issues. The first thing should be introduction of the team. If you are 3 of you, yes, you work here, they know you, but please identify yourselves as the internal auditors, explain the purpose of the audit, let them know the objectives, why you are there, what is the objective of the audit, the criteria that you'll base your findings, and the scope. Remember, all this will have been indicated in the audit plan for you. Reconfirm the audit plan. It's important. The audit plan may be showing that you'll be there from 3 to 4. But maybe this person has an emergency and he can't be there 3 to 4. So you can agree. Is it okay? As according to the audit plan, I was to be here from 3 to 4. Is it okay? Can I continue? Maybe they can tell you, no, please, there's an emergency. Can we start at 3:15 or 3:30 to 4:30? So don't just assume we'll go as per the audit plan. Explain audit process, very important. So don't just start question 1. Methods of correcting information. How are you going to correct your information? Let the person know it's observation. Remember, for them, they have not gone through this training. So don't expect that they know all that. So methods, yeah, I'll do interview, I'll view some of your documents, I'll observe. Presentation of findings. How are you going to present your finding? Let the person know. Even how you are going to classify the non-conformance. We'll discuss that later on. The major, if you talk of a major non-conformity, what will you mean? An observation, a minor. Assure the auditee that confidentiality shall be observed. That is very important. Let the person be at ease as they share the information. Tell them that as an internal auditor, you will ensure that confidentiality shall be observed so that they will be free even to give out information. External auditors are very good at that. They usually state that in the opening meeting. Before they start, even internally, it's good to copy that. to state that. State that the findings shall be based on a representative sample. So what does it mean? It's like a disclaimer. Maybe I just looked at three LPOs because of time, and I stated that the LPOs are well managed and controlled. But since I did not look at the whole population, so there is uncertainty that maybe what I've stated that it's all LPOs are conforming may not be true because I didn't look at everything. And normally you cannot be able to look at everything. So you just let the person know if their LPOs are just sampled randomly. There are some people who have sampling plan, but we don't want to be so technical in this. You just sample. If you are shown files in a shelf, you can maybe take the topmost one, the metro, and down there, 3, and you look at what you want to look at. It's important to set ground rules. This will help minimize distraction. So let a person know that you are there maybe for 1 hour. They need to reason or to not to involve themselves with other issues so that you concentrate and you're able to finish up. As for any clarifications, questions can be answered. Yeah, before even you start asking your questions, let a person air their views. Is it okay? Can we continue? At the opening meeting, again, please control the meeting. Remember, you have not started auditing. And there are some auditees who are very, can say maybe difficult. You start the meeting, and they bring on other stories, and they start asking, what is this ISO? When did it start? How did it? How far have we gone? What are the challenges? So you start. If you don't control the meeting, you can take all your time talking about those kind of issues that were not even in the audit scope. So it has to be very short, maybe 10 minutes at most. In fact, it says there, keep it short and stick to the point. So you need to control the meeting. Otherwise, you can do the opening meeting for 45 minutes and you're only left with 15 minutes to audit, which is too bad. Agree also on the closing meeting. So for internal audits, just to tell them, after I've audited, I'll share you with a summary of what I'll have found, which will act like a closing meeting. But external auditors, once they audit, they'll come to the boardroom and all of you will be called again, all those who are audited, and they will share their outcome at that kind of a meeting. In the internal audit, it may not be that formal. You can just share it. You can do it just there and you finalize. So it's very important to go through those issues. Otherwise, there will be problems ahead, and they may be caused because you did not go through some of these things we are talking about. You did not set the objectives, the audit criteria, the scope of the audit. You did not reconfirm the audit plan. You might find there are some troubles coming out as you go ahead. So it's 15:59. I'd want to ask if there is any feedback, any questions. You tell us so that we call it a day for today. So far, those things we have shared, there any feedback? Anything?
So, Samuel,
yes, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So my question is about this opening meeting.
Yes.
So the opening meeting will be conducted on the same day as the actual audit.
Yes, same time when you have gone to the site.
Ah, okay.
Yes, although a good question, there are some organization where they call everybody in the boardroom. Those will be audited and the auditors. Then the QMS auditor takes them through an opening meeting. They tell them what we are intending to do, all that we have covered in the opening meeting. Then they are released to go and just start the audit. But in most cases, it's difficult to gather everybody there. It's good for the auditor to go and do their own opening meeting at the workstation where they are going to audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think my mind was looking at the usual financial audit, which usually happens every year.
Yes.
And maybe Moses Mungai will relate to this, where the opening meeting is done sometimes even days before the actual audit begins.
Okay. Yeah, if it works, no problem. But for the quality systems audits, what I've seen through experience, we do it either that day we can do it all of us together in a boardroom, then we are released to go for the actual auditing on site, or even the auditor will just do their own individually with the auditees.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.